Welcome to I Don't Need an Acting Class with Milton Justice.
I'm sitting with Kaleb, and we just listened to the first part of this discussion about how you play parts, which, granted, seems logical because how many parts are written about you, but that have nothing to do with your personal experience. And so I asked Kaleb basically, because he's done a lot of parts that had nothing to do with his experience. In fact, I can't think of any part he's played that had to do with his experience. From All My Sons to playing a disco boy to playing, it's running the gamut in an odd sense of parts that are written for young actors. So I just asked him and I said, so what are we missing in this discussion? Because I do think it's an important discussion about how do we approach a part where we have absolutely no relationship whatsoever with the facts of the play.
Yeah. Well, and I thought the answer you were giving was spot on. There were like two things I think that I was expecting at certain points you to bring up, and that you didn't. But I mean, it was something to do with the fact that you brought up the father. And in that particular instance, you went down this road on where have I seen it? And I was expecting at some point for you to be, okay, so, and what does that mean? But you sort of went to it with the nature of. But the other thing that sort of it all comes down to is that, well, that's one version of a father. But what does the play tell me that this character is like? What kind of a father is this person? And so funneling everything through the filter of the play and what your analysis and understanding of the play is will help inform you what choices to make.
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting. It's like the problem with teaching acting is that there are specific tools. And so one is, how do I deal with something that is not anywhere in my own realm? And then there's another big, huge thing is, what is the play about?
Exactly.
And so that's really important. I agree. And I think that's one of the reasons that certainly I like teaching. And I think one of the things that Stella taught that was really important was script analysis, because you really do look at the world that the play exists in, and then figure out, how do you play the father in this particular world? And it will be different. And even from playwright, a play to play with the same playwright, there's a difference between the father in All My Sons and the father in Death of a Salesman.
1000%. Yeah.
So it's like, so sort of at the top, I guess, of the umbrella over all of it is, what is this play about? And then how does my character fit in with what this play is about? So,
and I think part of that too, as you work on a play and you start, because you not always are you able to answer the question, what is this play about, at the beginning. And so you're in rehearsals and you're working on character, and you make a choice. But it's also important, as you've mentioned many times, to revisit your choices the further in rehearsal you go, the further down the process, because you know more now and you understand the play more now. So does this choice actually make sense, or is there something more accessible now that you understand the play that will give you what you need to go there?
Yeah, very good point. And in fact, I was just thinking, okay, so let's say if we took the father in Death of a Salesman and we understood what the role of the father was during that period. And so you look at the role of the father during that period is to bring home money and to support the house. And to make sure that his sons have certain ideas so you start to get that. And then you look at, so what is this play about? This is a play about a man who is losing who he is. And so it's interesting that...
And you can't live up to the task.
you can't
that
live
life
up to the task. You
has
can't live up to
made-
the task.
yeah.
And that begins to tell you certain things about how to play that father. Yeah, so it's, but I do think the point that you bring up about continuing to revisit the play is an important thing to do, because the more you rehearse, the more that you understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had any specific problems? Because one of the things that is interesting, Jed in class was working on an audition for a play in London where he was playing a rugby coach. And he got a lot of things out of the text that had to do with his relationship to what the coach was talking about. So it's a very interesting sort of bridge to cross between you, the actor, and your understanding of what he's talking about, and what the character, what his relationship to what he's talking about. And I'm just curious when you've had this problem, because you've managed to do a lot of really good parts.
Yeah. This actually, the play that I'm working on right now is this exact thing I'm working on right now, because I Kaleb the actor, understand that the character I'm playing is a very small part in the grand scheme of this play. He's a sort of a transient character that comes in and is sort of the outsider. But he represents something in the play, and the playwright is using him for a very specific purpose. And so I know that, and so it has informed me on what choices to make regarding the character, the trait, how I play him. But then taking that and moving into, so what, okay, that's me, but I can't play the part as a character that knows he's a theme. So what is my guy thinking when he goes through all these? And there are very specific. This is a character that's by about 20 years the youngest in the entire play, and he's the one having an affair with 2 older women, and it's causing a stir. So I know what the playwright is doing here with this piece and with this character. But what is going on in my head when I'm making these decisions? And this is the 60s. This is Texas. This is has to do with a lot of land and power. But this young kid coming into this family of, matriarchs and money and greed. What is he thinking? What am I thinking when I go into when I enter into an affair with this woman? So I'm actually in process of working on that.
It's interesting you should mention that, because I was doing a session with JP about the play he did. And it was interesting. He said before he went on stage, while he was backstage, he did an exercise that we often do called take your character 3 places outside of the play.
He waited till he was backstage?
No, he'd been doing it all the way through.
Okay.
That was his preparation before going on stage.
I see, yes.
And
good.
Just before he went on stage. And so he took him outside the play and said, what would he be doing at the donut shop? And so he would watch him do it and then become him doing it. And it was interesting, and that was his preparation. And he said, I would just stand backstage before I went out, before I made an entrance, in order to help me get into the character and move into his mindset, because what he wanted to do was to get his mindset. And so he said, so I just would see where the character went, and I'd take him someplace and watch him. And then he was able to, he's been in rehearsal for 5 months. So he was able to then move into being that character doing that.
Yeah.
And that helped him get into the mindset of the character. So again, it's, of course, JP, it's a play that takes place in the 70s, and he's a Vietnam vet. JP didn't
Right.
graduate from Rutgers, please,
Yeah.
until, I don't know, 10 years ago. So it's a whole different mentality, but yet he was able to cobble together a lot of pieces of information, and out of all that information, begin to find out what's actable. What is it's what Kazan said, all the intelligent work you do analyzing a character must be turned into behavior.
Yeah.
What we say, what's actable. And so, or what I've said before, so what will the audience see to let them know that? And so it tells you that it needs to be something actable.
You just brought something up, and I don't want to get on this for too long, but you had just mentioned the Vietnam War and all that, and how of course JP had never experienced it, but when I was doing All My Sons and that big monologue to Anne about losing the entire company of men, I never could build in its entirety to the depth that another actor may be able to go. I could never build watching my men go down to that degree. But what I could do was hold on to the image of that kid in that monologue that hands me his last pair of dry socks. And I could see him. And that's all I needed for that monologue. So I guess I bring that up to say, I didn't need all of it in all of its excruciating detail in order to earn what I was doing with this monologue. Because I'm doing something like, there's the monologue and there's what I'm talking about and the fact that the characters experienced it. But there's also a reason I decide to bring it up to Anne. I'm doing something with the monologue at the same time. And so there's a lot that goes into it. You really have, but that goes back to, what is this a play about?
Yeah. Yes. It's not easy being an actor.
Yeah.
And I'm only 50 years older than you, and I'm still trying to figure it out, and I wish you well. Thank you, Kaleb.
Thank you, Milton.
Thanks for listening to I Don't Need an Acting Class. Feel free to check out our website, idon'tneedanactingclass.com, and you can also find us on Instagram, @I Don't Need an Acting Class.